I know what you're thinking right now. There's not enough Colin Cowherd in my life. I hear it every day from my family. Listen, if you want more, subscribe. You're clearly a guy, pivoting for you is not difficult. And I always had this theory. People have asked me over my career, oh gosh, you've been on the air for 30 years. How have you lasted? And I always say fear. I have to pivot or I'm out of work. I got to find whatever platform's growing. I'm loyal to platforms, right? For you, you have a great job. There's no school to go to be a GM. Sometimes you lose a GM job. You never get another one. I found early in my career, I think I'm more joyful now, but early in my career, there was this kind of fear like, man, they're after me. In your day-to-day life where you're criticized for a draft pick, is it stressful? Do you sense the stress of it? How do you kind of compartmentalize that and have a joyful life as you deal with every draft pick, every Sunday, wildly scrutinized, job on the line?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I don't sleep at night. I mean, it's truly, now don't get me wrong. And the thing that's funny that you say fear, I mean, I'm not kidding you. Whether I've won Executive of the Year and I still wake up in the morning thinking I'm going to get fired. And I think it's probably the roots and where I came from. My dad worked for the same company for 42 years as a machinist, humbling beginnings and that sort of thing. And it's just the way I'm wired. It's the way I was wired as a player. And that part is maybe the mental game that I play with myself that gives me the edge, because I always think that I have to prove somebody wrong. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult, particularly, and I said this about a week ago, if you want to win a popularity contest, don't become an NFL general manager, because whether it's the players, the coaches, somebody, you're going to make people unhappy. And you can't do things to make people like you. You have to make really tough decisions, which are unfortunate. Guys that contracts are expiring or trading players. At some point in time, people feel like they're going to be misled. They're going to feel like you did them wrong. And you have to have tunnel vision, block out the noise, and feel like you're always doing what's right for the organization, long-term health and short-term health.
When you made that deal for Chandler Jones, Belichick is this iconic guy. He'd burned a lot of people. He'd made a lot of good trades. Where's their apprehension, like looking behind closed doors? Okay, I'm going up against the wizard, because he's been a huge hit for you. You have won that trade. That is not disputable. And for a couple of years, they couldn't generate the kind of pass rush. That was one of the few where you look back a couple of years later and go, wow, New England misses that player, and Arizona stole that player. Do you remember where you were when you made that deal and what was going through your mind?
Because I remember calling him and asking him if, again, sometimes you just have to spitball, because you think to yourself when you're watching the tape, there's no chance they're going to trade this guy because of how much you like the player, the talent, the position that he plays, how hard they are to find. So, hey, why not throw it out there? I mean, all they can say is no, right? So you say, hey, Bill, would you consider moving on from Chandler Jones? And I'll never forget, with Bill's reaction, maybe, I'll think about it. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, really? No different than DeAndre Hopkins or at the time Carson Palmer when I talked to the Raiders. I liked what I saw in Carson, even though they weren't winning a lot of games. He threw for over 4,000 yards that year and thought, put him in Bruce Arians' offense, vertical stretch in the field. Yeah, it's a good fit. And sure enough, it was. So when you're making those trades, again, with guys like him and D-Hop and Chandler, guys that you think are really good football players, you always wonder, what do they know that we don't? That's why I always talk about free agency the way I do. In general, I truly view it as fool's gold, because number one, why are they on the market? Two, we don't have intimate knowledge of that player unless we have a coach that coached him at that team. So why is that team ready and willing to move on from him? And we're putting this type of contract in front of them with this type of guaranteed money. It's scary.
That DeAndre Hopkins, that day you signed him, did you drive home thinking, holy shit,
well, it was terrifying because we agreed to the deal, Bill O'Brien and myself, and the pandemic hit. So a trade is not consummated until you have each player pass the physical. So David Johnson and D-Hop had to pass physicals. We couldn't travel because of the pandemic. So we had to sit around on pins and needles Number one, holding the secret that we have DeAndre Hopkins coming. And then two, the fact that it's not done until there's a physical. So you're always, praying that this guy is going to pass the physical. And thank goodness they both did, and it all worked out. But for about a month or maybe even 2 months, I had to sit on that with nobody knowing, no reports. And truly, there were days where I remember waking up and I remember calling Michael Bidwell and saying, we're really getting DeAndre Hopkins, aren't we? Really? Is this really real, or am I dreaming? I mean, the pandemic was screwy enough. You already had stuff going on in your mind. You were playing games with yourself. So it was pretty difficult.